Hello. Welcome to the Community Homeworks Workshop this evening. We're so glad that you're joining us tonight. My name is Tiana Harrison, and I'm the Education and Volunteer Coordinator at Community Homeworks. If you're viewing this live, please feel free to comment and let us know where you're tuning in from. Also, if you would like to join in on the discussion or ask questions, please put that in the comment section as well. If you're watching this live after the live broadcast, we are still happy to answer your questions. It just may take us a little longer to respond. Community Homeworks is a nonprofit organization with a mission to empower homeowners to maintain safe, sustainable, and dignified homes. We get our funding from grants, gifts, and donations. So if you find value in this workshop tonight, we encourage you to donate on our website at communityhomeworks.org. Tonight's workshop is a little bit different. Harriet Homeowner is back on the scene. She's here with the marvelous Mr. Lee Taylor, and we are going to talk about home maintenance fundamentals. So Happy New Year, Mr. Taylor. How are you? Okay. So my name is Harriet, and I am coming to you today because I recently purchased a home, and I'm trying to figure out the best way to maintain it. I learned that the average American has at least 9 unfinished home improvement projects or repairs going on at one time, according to a survey of 2,000 homeowners by Porch.com. So it's no surprise that 1 in 10 homeowners feels like they're in control of their home maintenance responsibilities. So I don't want to be one of those 9. I'd rather be one of the ones that feels like I'm in control. I understand that homes need regular maintenance and upkeep or they'll get out of shape and look older than their years. And I also understand that poor maintenance could knock up to 10% of the home's appraised value. So what I'm wondering is what exactly is a home maintenance plan so that if I decided in a couple years that I wanted to sell my home, that it won't be so overwhelming to me. And so what's the very first step in maintaining my home as a first-time homeowner, as just a homeowner period?
Well, I mean, if you hadn't had an inspection done before you bought the house, I would say that's something you would probably want to have done.
Okay.
Just general, inspection done. And a lot of times, I mean, they're a little more accustomed to be able to be looking for potential problems and that sort of thing. Ideally, you would have done that before you bought the house. But if for some reason you didn't, it would be a good time to have that done.
Okay.
But as far as the maintenance checklist, that sort of thing, I guess it depends on what kind of person you are. Me myself, I have it in my head as far as kind of when to do and all that sort of stuff. But like I said, you can write up a list like this. I don't know if you want to show it to them, or you can have one made up. There are also apps out there that are make it so that if you want to do it on your phone, I think you had more information on those apps. So, but you want to break it down into what time of the year you want to kind of pay attention to that, or when you should be doing that check, and then also what areas. So like I said, it's this is broken up into the yard, an exterior, basements, a crawl space, exterior, roofs, windows. And I'm looking.
So can I ask you a couple of questions?
Yeah.
So would it be helpful because I haven't moved into my home yet,
Okay.
so it's no furniture or anything in there.
Okay.
Would you recommend that I walk through and kind of take notice of what the rooms look like and like what am I looking for specifically? I know that there's things that I'm looking for, but I don't know what I'm looking for. So it's a fresh, brand new house.
Right.
What specifically should I look for from the moment I walk in the door?
Well, I always say water is one of the biggest culprits out there as far as damage to the home. And, water can get into the house in a lot of ways. I mean, obviously, roof, you have a weak roof system or, a small failure or something along that line, you may see evidence like water staining on the ceiling, or sometimes it's a paint bubble type thing, so I would look for that. Also, you can get water coming in through, say, a doorway that's not sealed properly, or the weather stripping is damaged, something along that line. The other areas are just your water lines and your drain lines. So, looking underneath your kitchen sinks and making sure you don't have, drippy faucets or drippy drains or, anything along that line. And usually you can tell. I mean, that's the one good thing about water, is that it usually leaves signs that it's been around. So, to me, that's one of the biggest things. It's just, water introduced into the house where it's not supposed to be. It causes rot and mildew and mold and critters and all sorts of issues.
Okay.
The other thing I would be looking at is kind of the structure of the home as in general. So, in that sense, are the floors warped? Are the floors soft in places?
Mm-hmm.
Again, kind of leading to a water leak or something along that line. As far as the windows, the doors, do they shut properly? Are they hard to open, hard to close? Are they sticking? Some of that sort of stuff shows some evidence, sometimes of uneven settling. That sort of stuff can be going on in the house. As far as mechanicals in the house, a lot of times if you're looking at those, even just a layperson, a lot of times you can tell if it's old. If it's getting up there in age, and a lot of them will have a sticker when they installed it. I've walked into some houses and look at the furnace, and it was installed in 1952, and it's
And is
still,
that what you mean by mechanicals?
right. Mechanicals are your furnace, your water heater, appliances,
Okay.
that sort of stuff.
Okay.
Those things that you need to be able to basically make a house a home, sort of a thing. So, you were looking at those, and if they're looking, aged, especially aged, it's usually a good indication that you're going to want to have those looked at a little closer by a professional or something along that line, just to get a feel, like, okay. And this is back to the inspection part.
Okay.
But a lot of times if you walk in and there's an appliance in there, or some kind of a system in the home that's, say, older than 10, 15 years,
Okay.
you might want to start looking at it a little closer as far as how it's functioning and stuff like that. I mean, it's not going to be obvious necessarily, other than just kind of when it was installed.
Okay.
And just how it looks.
So I've gotten, just for whatever reason, I wasn't able to get inspection done. So once
Right.
I move in, I want to check for potential problems. The first thing that I want to see is if there's any water damage to the structure,
Right.
to the home, and then to make sure that the mechanicals in the structure are working good.
Right.
So now that I've discovered, I have a list, and I'm like, okay, these are all the issues that I have. What is the best way to figure out how to tackle those problems? Like, what are the, I know that the things that need immediate attention.
Right.
But now that I've moved into my home and I'm ready to start putting things on some type of
Of
schedule, what would that schedule look like? So I just closed on my home the last Monday. We're moved in. I've done all those inspections and things of that nature. What should I focus on from, say, now until April?
Well, part of it does depend on what time of year it is, as far as up here in the good old north, having snow and everything else. But depending on the time of the year, I would kind of break it down into what's going on the outside of the house. I'm talking, like I said, your shingles, your foundation, sidewalks around your house, that sort of thing. And whether or not they're in good shape, your driveway, whether it's a concrete drive or anything along that line. guess I'm trying to figure out exactly how you want this
Well,
broken down.
Nope. So what I'm saying is that it's January right
Okay.
now. What type of projects could I do right now?
Okay. It being January here, one of the things I would probably concentrate on would be those simple weatherization
Yeah.
items that you can do. You know,
Okay.
are my windows drafty, or do I feel cold air blowing through?
I just
So-
discovered, Mr. Taylor, that one of my windows is broken.
Okay.
What do I do?
You definitely want to get that fixed. So, I mean, broken glass broken or just not operating
Well,
style?
So I have two windows that have an issue. One window has a crack in it,
Okay.
and I'm scared to lift it because I think it's going to shatter. We just moved in. It was fine when we moved in, but it got really cold one day, and I think I heard the window crack.
Okay.
So I'm not sure what to do with that one. But then I have another window that just won't lift up.
Okay.
And so I wasn't sure if I needed to wait until spring to fix that or
So-
which one I should fix.
Yeah, they both can be issues depending on where they're at.
Okay.
So let's play with the cracked window. That one is probably a little more straightforward. You can call a company to come out and be able to put in new glass for double pane windows or vinyl windows. A lot of the glass companies will come out and be able to do that, no
Okay.
problem. And it's usually a little less money than you think.
What do you mean?
As far as
A little less money? Is it going to be
I think
under-
people have a tendency to think that it's going to be outrageously expensive,
Yes.
and it's usually not.
So will it? I'm thinking $300. Am I?
Again, it's going to depend on the size of the glass. It'll depend on where in the country you are, but it
Okay.
would probably be around that. You
Okay.
know, and is a cracked pane, that big of a deal? Yeah, you want to get it fixed, but to me, the bigger issue would be the window that doesn't want to open. And
Okay.
when I look at that, I put it into context of where it is. Let's say it's in a bedroom. Let's say that window is meant to be an egress window, meaning that if there's fire or something along that line, you need to be able to get out of that window
Okay.
as your second means of leaving that room, whether it's the door or that window.
Okay.
If you can't open that window, now all of a sudden that maintenance issue gets a little bit higher on the list, if that makes sense.
Yes, sir.
So, and doors can be the same way. I've seen it where some doors I've seen people where they don't open their doors because they can't open them. They just don't use that door.
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, you have to kind of put it in terms of, is this going to be a bigger problem down the line, if that
Okay.
makes sense?
Okay.
So,
And so now, again, it's January, and I know that those are the immediate things. Are there things that I need to do, like say with my dryer or that kind of issue? Are there things that I can do to make sure that I don't have any fire hazards in the winter?
yeah, you want to make sure your dryer vent's cleaned out. So you can buy those the little brushes. They're 4-inch brushes with attachments, so you can push it in. Usually, what I'll do is I'll kick the dryer on, just air, and go from the outside and clean out that dryer vent. All the lint. So you can go from the outside while it's running, and that way it's going to spit stuff out. If it's really packed, sometimes you have to dismantle it from the inside and go out also. I've seen some that are extremely packed.
Mm-hmm.
So it just depends.
And that's something I can do in the winter.
Yeah, that's something you can, if you don't mind kneeling outside in the cold for, however long it takes, but usually it doesn't take that long.
What about my stove? Should I be cleaning the filter above my grease?
I mean, any filter that's going to trap grease, that sort of stuff, yeah, it should be cleaned up. I mean, it can catch fire, but B, it's not going to be doing the job. It's going to be wearing out the motor if it's having to pull through a grease-soaked filter and stuff like that.
Speaking of pulling out the motor, what about the refrigerator? I read somewhere that I should also be cleaning the refrigerator coils on a monthly basis. Why is that, and what is that?
Well, so it depends on the fridge. I mean, some of those older style fridges, you'd have to pull them out, and that coil it looks like a rack or a grid on the back, metal, and you can clean those off. And sometimes that coil is underneath the fridge, so you open up the doors and pop off this bottom front panel, and clean out the coils underneath there. Why is it important? Well, it kind of goes on the same concept as using your air conditioning. If the coils are covered in dust and pet hair and whatever else, it's just not going to cool the refrigerator as well. So usually you'll have a fan in there that's blowing air across those coils because that hot refrigerant, in a sense, runs through and then it cools it off. But if it's covered in fur and whatever else, it's not going to be as effective, increasing your energy bills and potentially sometimes decreasing the lifespan of your fridge.
So what exactly do you do to clean it?
A lot of times you just get a vacuum cleaner. You just get underneath there. You can get a wand for a vacuum cleaner and get underneath there and clean it out. You get a flashlight. For dryer vents, they sell kind of like a wand. It's like a long pipe cleaner in a sense, and you can get that and get in there and kind of get the stuff off. It's one of those things when you look at it, you'll get a feel,
exactly
right?
what to do.
You'll have a good idea of kind of what you need to be able to do.
Okay. Is
So,
it also important to inspect the hoses on the washing machine and
Yep.
the dishwasher? What exactly am I looking for if I'm looking for leaks? How will I know that it's leaking?
Well, you're
Other
going
than
to
it
see.
being wet.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, that's the first one. You see a big pool of water. Well, that might be a problem. The other is, buildup, like lime buildup. And again, it depends on what part of the country you're in. But, a lot of times you'll have a slow leak. And as it evaporates, it leaves that lime buildup, that scale. And I've seen some turn-off valves and stuff where they're just covered in that because that valve has been leaking for years and years and years. And it gets to a point where you're never going to be able to shut it off. So back to, if you notice something like that, usually it's an indication that it needs a little more maintenance.
Okay.
Sometimes the maintenance is relatively straightforward with just tightening it down a little bit. Sometimes it needs to be replaced. And
Okay.
this is where, it just depends on the age and how long it's been going. As far as hoses and stuff for like wash machines, what will happen with those is that people leave them on when everybody does, even though technically you're not supposed to. But what will happen is with those old rubber hoses, they just get fatter and fatter and fatter right where they connect up to the spigot. And eventually that will rupture and just sit there and spew water everywhere. So, yeah. And then, like I said, water, as far as, what was your other question? Sorry,
That's okay.
My brain
No,
went somewhere
no,
else.
we were talking about making sure that the hoses were good. Now, talking about water, I do have a question.
Okay.
I noticed that I have a sump pump in my basement. Is this a good time to check and make sure that that's functioning correctly also, or should I do that in the spring?
Really, any time is a good time. I mean, spring is, depending on what that pump is for. Sometimes you have some pumps where it deals with water that's getting into the basement, right, for some reason. And so that operates depending year round, depending on the water table level. Sometimes those pumps are for, say, like a bathroom or something else that's downstairs that's lower than your drains. So you always want to make sure, no matter what kind of pump it is, you always want to make sure it's working. So, if you have, let's say you have a pump and you have the means to be able to get a 5-gallon bucket and dump some water into it, it should have a float in it where once it gets to a certain height, it's going to kick on and evacuate that water out. If it's a sewage pump, again, it's hooked up to a toilet or something along that line. You may have to go flush the toilet or run the bathroom or something like that, and you hear that thing kick on.
Okay.
If you want to get with those, and I'd say it doesn't matter what kind you have, get a water alarm. And old school ones, what they were was just a battery operated thing that hangs on the wall, and it had a wire that went around the base of the the pump. And let's say that pump decided to fail and water worked its way up and hit that wire. Well, it would start screaming and squawking and everything else. You'd hear it. But now they have them where they hook right up to your phone, and it will send you an alert saying, hey, water has been detected. And you can put these all sorts of places. And it's that situation, you can put it around your base of your water heater, you can put it underneath your sinks, that sort of stuff. So, yeah, you want to make sure those pumps work. And you said they're there for a reason. You usually want to make sure that they work. And if you want to get real technical on it, if you have the manual and you have means, you can do what's called an amp meter. Basically, you have a plug where it's plugged in most of the time.
Okay.
And you put this thing around the wire, and when that pump kicks on, it reads a certain amount of amps when it kicks on. And the older a pump gets, so this is where you would need the manual. The older it gets, the more amps it pulls when it starts up. And think of it like the older we get, the longer it takes us to get out of a chair, right?
Okay.
It's kind of the same deal. So, if you have that manual and it says, hey, on startup, it should have this many amps, and you put it around it and you go, okay, well, let's say for purposes, it's 13 amps when it starts up and it's pulling 16, 18 amps or something like that. It's starting to get old. And then again, it just depends on how far you want to be able to take these maintenance things.
Okay.
Some people just will kind of take it as it comes, sort of a thing, making sure it works, and just have the money set aside for when it does croak out that they can call somebody in to replace it. Or they may want to take a little more preventative, and that's where keeping those manuals and all that sort of stuff is real helpful.
We are looking to be organized so that we can do more preventative maintenance than anything. So I read that I should reverse my ceiling fans.
Yep.
Why?
Well, one direction is for winter and one is for summer. So when you look at a ceiling fan, it has a tilt to it, right?
Okay.
And don't ask me this. I think it's counterclockwise. So basically, if it's tilted like this and it's running in this direction, what it's doing is scooping that warmer air that's up near the ceiling, and that fan's running at a slower speed, and it's pushing down that warmer air.
Mm-hmm.
So that's a setting you would use for wintertime.
Okay.
And then in the reverse, there's usually a little switch or something like that. You can switch it, and now it's running with the blade pitched down in that direction, right? What that's doing is pulling that cool air up from the ground and help circulate it. And that usually in the summer, they run a little faster. So winter is usually a slower speed, the blade tilting up to gently push that warm air down. Summer is usually a little faster speed, going against that pitch to be able to pull that cool air up.
Speaking of air quality, would it be a good time to purchase a humidifier?
Yeah, I mean, humidifiers are one of those things that you have to be careful of. Like I said, generally you want to keep your humidity. You don't usually want it to go over 60%. A lot of the thermostats these days have humidistats built into them. So what it will say is what's the relative humidity in the home, right?
Mm-hmm.
And that's a good thing to know. Sometimes what happens is people will put a humidifier in their house, and there's nothing wrong with humidifier, but they don't quite know how to use it, and they ramp up that humidity quite a bit in the winter, up to like 60 or 70%.
Mm-hmm.
And now all of a sudden they're getting other issues that are going on inside their walls, condensation on their windows, a lot of other things. So, humidifiers aren't bad. And yeah, believe me, it's one of those things where it gets dry and it's miserable. You're at 20% humidity and it's dry as a bone in the house. So adding humidity to the house is not a bad thing as long as you're not going overboard with it.
Yes, sir.
So having that humidistat, whether it's built in or just a standalone, is going to be helpful, and keeping it at about 50 or below.
One of the things that I also wondered was about making sure that my storm windows, I think those are storm windows. What exactly are storm windows, and how do I use them in the winter?
So storm windows usually are meant for houses that had like a single pane glass, an older home. And what it's doing is it's creating in a sense, a dead space of dead air in between your interior pane and your exterior pane. So ideally, those storm windows is that you have usually you have a fixed pane of glass on the top and operable pane of glass on the bottom. So in the summer, you can open it up, open your windows, let the breeze go through. For wintertime, you close them down so that it's just another layer of protection. It's sort of a, I don't want to say a double pane window, but sort of a double pane window, that same sort of idea.
Okay.
So yeah, if you have storms, the biggest thing you want to make sure is that that all the glass is intact, not broken, not missing. A lot of times people will take out the frame to the glass and everything else and possibly put them in their garage or something like that. And at that point, the storm window's not doing anything. So, making sure if you have them, you have all the parts and pieces, put them back in. If you don't, again, going back to the glass shops and saying, hey, this is the size that I need, and mix them up and have those installed. So that's the basics on storm windows.
Yes, sir. Would it be a good time to make sure that all of the smoke detectors and carbon monoxide
Yep.
detectors have fresh sets of batteries?
Not only fresh sets of batteries, but you want to check the dates on them also. So if you, and it doesn't matter what kind of smoke detector, whether it's a wired in, where it's directly wired into your home's wiring with a battery backup, or it's just a standalone style, just a battery. The smoke detectors have a lifespan of about 10 years. And on the back, it will have the manufacturer date on it. So again, if you're moving into a house and you don't know, pull those smoke detectors off, flip them around, look at the back and see if they're past that 10-year mark.
Mm-hmm.
If it's carbon monoxide detector, they're about 7 years. So I would be doing that one first. If they're out of date, get them changed out. If you have the means to be able to do it, buy units that have sealed batteries. They have sealed lithium batteries inside of them where you're not having to remember to replace that battery. And what it does is that battery lasts for about 10 years. And then it starts chirping at you saying, hey, the unit is done.
Mm-hmm.
Needs to be replaced.
Okay.
So, yeah. And if they're in good shape, right, change those batteries out.
You had mentioned about sealing the cracks in doors. Is that something that I can do while we're talking about?
Yeah, I mean, there is a lot in the way of thinking in terms of how much money am I sending to the great outdoors,
Mhm.
through cracks and crevices and whatnot, and weather stripping, and basically anything that's open to the outside. Whether if you feel air moving through or a draft coming through, there's usually some means to be able to stop that. Whether it's a door and bad weather stripping, or whether it's a window, may be not fully closed and locked, with sealed up good. It could just be a gap where over time something is separated out and letting that air move in and out. So whether it be cans of foam or cans of caulk or new weather stripping, or even something as simple as when you shut your window, you lock it so that it all stays nice and tight. And I always say, if you're not
Right.
using a window, have a lock.
Makes sense.
So
Makes sense. So now that I know that I have all these things to do, I know that there are different home maintenance apps that I can use. So if I want to be extra organized, and I
Yep.
do in this situation, I think that we could find an app or a planner specific to home maintenance so that you can use it to plan and track your progress. I looked up a couple of different apps and learned that there is one called Centric. It's a one-stop shop for appliance maintenance.
Okay.
And I thought that it was interesting that you were talking about the manuals. And so what happens in this app is that you input all of your appliance information, and if anything ever goes wrong, the app will have a database of used manuals, how-to videos, and a repair person option specific to that appliance.
That's really good.
I thought that was really amazing.
It's amazing what they can do these days, because in our basement we have a file bin, and it's full of. And every time we get rid of a TV or whatever it is, we're like, we have to rat through it. Oh, here it is, and it goes when the TV goes or
Right.
whatever. So
Well, Centric says that they have a way that you can have a home inventory, your insurance documents. You can know the repair. You can save warranty information, know the cost to use, and safety recall checks. It ranges from free, where you can manage up to 5 items in your home, all the way up to $100 if you have multiple properties that you wanted to manage. So I thought that was pretty cool.
yeah, that's something I need to look into, because I deal with this stuff a lot, and that was the last thing in my brain. Was
Mhm.
there might be an app out there for that. It's like, yeah, that is actually nice. I mean, you could do the good old
Ye-
punch list,
which
thing.
is my preference, but I know that there are people that are digital. So the other thing that I found was something called HomeZada, and that masterfully manages everything related to your home, including budget, home value estimates, and home maintenance plans, complete with alerts and reminders for monthly tasks. And again, that goes anywhere from free to a plan that's about $150 a year, but that's for if you have multiple properties and needed to.
So
use it.
let me add on to that one. I know a lot of people are going to be looking, and I can't speak for the app because
No, I can't speak for the app.
I
but I
haven't
just-
physically looked at it, but
Mhm.
let's say this app costs you $150 a year, but what it's going to do, and I'm saying if it does, I don't know if it does, but
Yes, sir.
if that app, if it makes it so that it's sending you, a push notification or something along that line where it's saying, hey, it's time to change your furnace filter, or hey, it's time to check your smoke detectors, or hey, it's time to, whatever. I would imagine that by doing those scheduled maintenance of the major items in your home, that you're easily going to save that in a year. As far as neglecting something,
Yes,
and
sir.
now all of a sudden that $5 or $10 fix is turned into a couple $100 fix.
Okay.
I mean, you get where I'm getting at.
Yeah,
with
I
that?
do, I
Where
do,
in
I
a
do.
sense, you're saving money by being able to do some of the stuff
In
yourself
an
and keeping
organized
on
manner.
top of it.
Yes.
So,
So why have a home maintenance log is one of the things that kind of leads into that question. You need a space for all of your records and maintenance tasks. So I understand the value that you're saying that this would add if you decided to go
right.
in that manner. This planner will allow you to maintain everything in one place. It's an easy way to keep track of changes that you've made to your home, and it helps identify when work was done and who completed it. So that is something that you can create on your own. If you were to develop a home maintenance log, the tips are to start now, to list any updates as they're made, to include model, serial numbers, and brand if known, to keep receipts with maintenance documents, to remember updates to garage, shed, patio, or deck, and to include videos or photographs of projects before and after,
Yeah.
if desired. So the next step in getting this home maintenance thing under control is to set reminders and stick to the plan. The best laid plans, you know what they say.
Yeah.
So no matter how thoughtfully you create your maintenance plan, you could still easily forget to do something. So set reminders to schedule a couple weeks to a month sooner than you need to get the task done. That way, if you make an appointment with a contractor or repair person, you'll have time to do it and you won't be calling last minute, because I hear that last minute calls are what gets you.
Yeah, you're either going to be put on a long wait list, or you're going to be paying through the nose to be able to have that person come out to be able to deal with that, what is now usually an emergency situation. So, yeah.
Okay. And then it's saying that they want you to store those maintenance records. Would you recommend doing that as well?
Oh, yeah. I mean, there are some things where, we had something go wrong with our fridge. I mean, and it was one of those things where, yeah, I probably could have done it. I didn't want to do it. I didn't have time to do it. And I said, call somebody out. But they came out and did whatever. But we clipped that right to our refrigerator manual.
Mhm, mhm.
So, whether you're doing it at old school paper style or on your phone, great.
Mhm.
And again, all that information, just, think of it like a car. If you have all of this and let's say you go sell your home, you can lay all this out and go, look, this is what has been done to this house. These are the, monthly maintenance thing, yearly maintenance thing, whatever. And they can see that it's been pretty well taken care of. So,
Mm-hmm. And this is important for you and for any potential buyers, right? So I understand that it's important to keep meticulous track of all the home maintenance records, work that I've done to my house, when the work occurred, and how much it cost.
Yep.
So I want to make sure that I'm holding on to things like what home improvement receipts, contractor invoices.
Yep, all that sort of stuff.
Okay.
I would just keep track of it. And I mean, a lot of people, nowadays are going to take a picture of it and keep it digitally.
Okay.
Fine, however you want to be able to do it. Plus, it helps because there have been times where I've had somebody come out and do something, whether it's something I didn't know how to do or something I just didn't want to get into.
Mm-hmm.
And, I keep the receipt and file it away. And all of a sudden that thing is conking out after 2 years or a year and a half. And I go back and I'll look and, oh yeah, that motor they put in has a,
Mm-hmm.
3-year warranty or
Mhm.
5-year warranty.
Mm-hmm.
So it can help, in a lot of ways too.
Okay. So I'm going to make sure that I keep absolutely everything, even if I feel like it's overkill. I understand that it's important for the eventual sale of the house,
Yep.
and that the best homeowners are the most organized homeowners that keep everything in a tidy place. So once I go back and check off the list of tasks isn't completed, I'll put it in a file. And, I understand that whether it's analog or digital, it's entirely up to me.
Right.
I will probably be really, really happy as a result of doing it this way, because the best laid plans are well kept. And so we're almost we could get into spring and summer, but I want to make sure that we don't have any questions from the audience.
No.
Nope.
Sure.
So we can keep going if you'd like.
Yeah, that's fine.
Okay, good. So the things that, hold on, so we have made it through the winter,
Okay.
and now we're going into the spring.
Okay.
What are some of the things what are kind of some of the projects that I can take on in the spring
Well,
that I
I
couldn't
mean,
do in the winter? Because I can get outside now.
right. Obviously, a lot of your outside projects. I'm going to say usually the biggest culprit is going to be things like the grade on your home. Whether that water, whether you have gutters or you don't have gutters, the water that comes off of your roof, is it going to be able to get away from your house? And that grade is needs to be able to be set to where you don't have water pooling or sitting within a couple of feet of your foundation. That's one of those things, especially in the spring when you can see we have those good old spring rains. Tells a lot.
Mhm.
So, and changing grade is pretty easy. Not necessarily, it's labor intensive because you're bringing in dirt and everything else and having to pack it down and whatnot. But it's not something that most people have an issue with doing if they have the time to work on it. So, I mean, I'd be looking at that. I would also be looking at, the shingles. And, that's one of those where is the general homeowner going to be able to look at their shingles and say, oh, yeah, they're going to need to be replaced in 5 years? As a general rule, no. But there are a few things you can look at, whether they're missing pieces, you're finding pieces of shingle in your yard from, windstorms or whatever in the winter. Whether the shingle, so depending on the style of shingle, but whether that shingle, let's say it's laying like this on your roof, and whether those corners are curling up a little bit,
Mm-hmm.
that's usually an indicator that shingle is getting near the end of its life or
Okay.
past the end of its life. So just the ability to be able to see those sort of things. If you have brick, say like a brick fireplace or something along that line, what will happen is, and this is something that will happen in the winter, but will show up in the summer or in the spring,
Mm-hmm.
what happens is the water gets in back, seeps into the brick, freezes, and pops pieces of the brick off. And what you end up with is a bunch of little pieces of brick all around the base on your roof that you don't see until springtime, or you get some freakishly warm weather in the winter. But that's an indication that you need to get something done with that, and it usually boils down to a drip cap or something like that. And these are telltale signs of something that usually most people have to have a professional come out and be able to look at that, brick mason, something along that line.
Okay.
So, other things are, it's never a bad time to try to do any kind of weatherization. If you're attacking it from the outside, yeah, spring or summer is that good time to be able to do it. Keep in mind that everything you do works for heat, but it also works for cooling also. So if you have AC or something along that line, all that stuff that you're going to do is going to be able to help you save money.
Okay.
Not only your heating, but your air cooling of the house. As far as some of the other things, like I said, driveways or sidewalks settling, what will happen? This is something you can see in the winter, but a lot of people don't necessarily look too close because they don't want to be outside that long.
Mm-hmm.
What will happen is if you have, let's say you have a concrete driveway and it's broken down into 5x5 sections or whatever, right? What will happen is that if that soil underneath holds too much moisture and it freezes, it'll shove that concrete up.
Mm.
And this is one of those things that, again, your house will talk to you. It'll tell you things, so you just have to learn to listen to it. You're shoveling along, and all of a sudden you're hitting, that driveway that is heaved up a little bit.
Yes.
It might be an indication that something's going on underneath. It might not be the greatest base that is put on, and it's holding moisture. Is that a big deal? It depends, because what will happen is it'll heave up, and then when it warms up, it'll drop back down again. But every time it does that, it weakens that concrete a little bit, for the most part, and you'll start getting cracks and everything else. So, some things show themselves at one time of the year, but they go away.
Okay.
When it's warmer. So,
and if you have concrete that has kind of that jagged edge, are you as a homeowner responsible for that? If someone was to say fall on that?
Yeah. I mean, if you have, if anything that's on your property, whether it's, your own sidewalk going up to your front porch or your driveway, or a city sidewalk that's, run along the front of your property, at least here, is that, if somebody injures themselves because of something like that, trip hazard, something like that, then yeah, they can go against your insurance company. And
so I have a couple more questions in regards to the springtime.
Okay.
And since we're outside, we want to make sure that water drains are away from the house.
Yep.
We want to make sure that there's no trip, fall, choking, sharp edge hazards around the house.
Yep.
Checking to make sure for signs of rodents, bats, roaches, and termites. What would that look like in the spring?
So it's amazing what I would say: roaches, bats, squirrels. Around here, squirrels are a big one. Raccoons are another big one. It's amazing what those critters can get into. You may see a hole. Let's say you're looking at, say, a gable end of your roof. So you have your roof doing this, right? And you have this front end. And there might be a little spot on the corner or something like that maybe is only that big, right? Like 2 inch by 2 inch or something. You wouldn't think much of it, but something like a red squirrel or something can get in there and tear things up. And it's amazing what even raccoons can get into. So that sort of thing, if you see a gap, and sometimes that gap is where you have an overhang and you have your soffit on the underside, sometimes that soffit pops out.
Mm-hmm.
And most people think, oh, it's not a big deal. Well, depending on how that thing's constructed, you can get critters that will go up, birds that'll go up, that sort of stuff. So any penetration going into your, say, attic or even into your house, yeah, you want to get those sealed up one way or another. The other is your exterior vents. So what I'm talking about is like your bath fan or something along that line. You're going to have, ideally, it's going to be exiting out either the roof or the side of your house, or maybe out on a gable or something. And they may have like one big flapper. When it's turned on, it opens up and then closes, or it may have, multiple louvers in it. And I've seen it where birds get in there and decide to start building their nest.
Mm-hmm.
And then it's a pain in the because you got to either wait for them to baby birds to like exit the nest before you're trying to reach in there and pull out the nest. If you're lucky, if you can reach it, and depending on what it is too, I've seen them where those birds get in there and they start pecking away at whatever that, if let's say it's a flex tube, that's your bath fan, and they destroy it just because those flaps were missing.
Mm-hmm.
So it's little things like that,
Okay.
Even down to, as far as like wasps, bees, that sort of stuff getting up into your attic space. They love that area.
Okay.
So things like that. Yeah.
And this is the perfect time to check
Yeah.
into all of that.
Right.
Would this also be a good time to clean out the gutters and downspouts?
Oh yeah. Yeah. And then, that's, I mean, you should be, if you have gutters, generally it's in this at least once a year. If you have to pick, if you're going to say I'm only going to do it once a year, spring would be a good time, but you want to wait a little bit because at least around here we have maple trees.
Okay.
And they get their seed pods, the whirlygigs and everything else, but they take a little bit to develop and then drop. So I've seen people where it's a beautiful day and it's very early April or something, and they're out there cleaning their gutters, and then 2 months later, the giant maple tree in their backyard goes and fills their gutters up again with whirligigs. So you have to kind of look at what's going on, unless you put in some kind of a gutter guard or something along that line. So
Okay.
you have to put a little bit of thought into it, and and usually you learn the hard way because that's how I have to learn it. Clean out my gutter, and then 2 weeks later I'm out there cleaning it again. But remember, don't do it until this time.
And so we talked about making sure that the shingles were in good condition and checking the chimneys, making sure the gutters were, that the water was discharging away from the building, that we checked the attic vents, and that we checked for signs of leaks. We made sure that we're looking for peel and paint because it's spring and we're able to go outside. Do we need to notice anything in particular about paint, or is it just we're looking for signs of peeling that needs immediate attention?
Well, peeling, cracking. I mean, there's a lot of different paint failures, I guess. So remember we were talking about the moisture issue. So what can happen is in the wintertime, if you, let's say you have high moisture, and I was saying it could cause problems. I'm going to pick on one of those problems right now. That moisture will work its way through that exterior wall and through whatever's the cladding or anything like that, the siding. And what we'll do is it'll hit that paint and it'll make that paint start to bubble a little bit. So let's say now it's spring and you're looking at your house, it's a painted house with wood siding type thing, and you notice that there's a lot of bubbling going on in the paint. That again is your house talking to you saying, you've got some other issues. Yes, you're going to have paint issues, but you're going to need to repaint. But there's a reason it happened. So I guess what I'm getting at is everything usually has some kind of a backstory to it.
Okay.
And in this case, that bubbling paint sometimes is an indication that you have too high humidity in your home in the winter. It works its way out. It hits that paint and starts bubbling it out. So people will, say, "Oh, I got to paint," and they won't think of past that point. So, like I said, a lot of things are connected, and as time wears on, either you're going to learn it one way or the other, you're going to pay for it, but it never hurts to ask. So, and I've had it where people see something, I run across it, where I see something, I run across something, and I haven't seen it before. I'm, doing Google searches on it, I'm talking to people that, I know are in different areas, whatever, to get, a bunch of different opinions or, on it.
Okay.
And, just that, having that mentality of something fails for a reason is probably the best way to look at it.
Okay.
You don't want to put a Band-Aid on something that doesn't fix the root cause of it.
Right.
So,
Right. Now, would this also be a good time, because it's spring, would it be a good time to replace some of the filters in my house?
yeah, I mean, air filters, furnace filters, that sort of thing. Yeah, I mean, those should be replaced. Those should be put on your monthly checklist,
Okay.
depending on what style filter it is. We talk about this in other classes. Most people have the little 1-inch filters, and those are about every month. But
Okay.
you want to at least pull them out, check them, and if they look clogged, replace them. Because again, you get back to clogged filter will shorten the life of your furnace and do other issues. So, yeah, changing those filters out should be put on that monthly. If you have bigger filters, you need to talk to the furnace person that comes out and say, how often does this filter need to be looked at?
Okay.
And they're going to be able to tell you, this is every 3 months or every 5 months or 6 months, whatever it is. It just depends.
Okay.
So, but yeah, I mean, that's one of the biggest causes of failures in the furnace or air conditioning is clogged filters. So.
Would this also be a good time? Again, I know that you said in the fall and winter I should be checking my vents and dryers, dryer screens. Would this be a good time to check my dryer vents and my exhaust fans and all of those type of things?
Right. And I mean, a lot of these maintenance things, a lot of it is just it is a visual inspection.
Okay.
So if you make it a habit when you go out, let's say you're working in your yard, you can glance up and be able to look at, let's say, those exhausts and be able to do a visual inspection like, oh, there's a bird going in and out of that thing. Well, maybe I should go ahead and deal with that. Or it's missing something. Again, understanding what it's supposed to look like versus what it actually looks like. And, a lot of that is just, it's amazing what you can do just by a quick visual check. And, your eyes will get used to the point where it's like, something's not right there, and then you can look at it a little bit closer. If that makes
it makes total sense. It makes total sense. We have completed our home maintenance issues, and just wanted to check in to see if there were any questions or comments from the audience.
You got to show these a little closer, or do you have those on?
We have them. I'll put them on the website.
Okay.
And people are welcome to come and grab them from here. I made copies for our participants. Do we have any questions, Jason?
We had no questions, but a few people checked in early on in the broadcast. Dorothy and Karen and Jackie all popped in, who are all old friends of ours from before COVID. So we hope to get them back in the classroom soon. We are here live each week, so those people can come and hang out with us.
Yeah.
Perfect. I would look forward to seeing you guys next Tuesday. We enjoyed spending this time together. I'm hoping that the the viewers were able to learn just kind of how to organize your home maintenance projects. And we look forward to seeing you again next week.